This video will talk about Adobe Illustrator for web design and its potential usage. So if I'm in Illustrator and I go to File to New, you'll see that in the new dialog box I have a bunch of different options, and mostly Illustrator is used for print because it's vector based, but I also have web and mobile choices here. So if I wanted to make an app, I can design the app here in Illustrator. If I want to design a website, you can see that there's a bunch of different options here. So let's say I choose the web large. Large means like large screen, so 1920 by 1080, or that would be 1080p. And then you can see over on the right hand side some options for bleeds, the color mode, the screen resolution, and if I go ahead and click create, I'll get a new artboard. Now notice that the artboard is not tall vertically, but we can change that over time. And there's a couple of things that Illustrator is strong for when it comes to designing things. And so first, let's take a look at a couple things. So if I go to the View menu, I can choose Show Grid, and the grid will show. And if I have Snap to Grid on under Guides, Snapping, Snap to Grid, anything that I put on the artboard, so if I put a box here, let's say for example, and I move it around, it's going to snap to those grid elements. Now you can control the grid by going to Illustrator Preferences, and you can go to Guides and Grid, and in the grid section you can choose the grid line. Right now it's at every 72 pixels. If you wanted to, you can change that, in the number of subdivisions. So if I change, let's say I change the subdivisions to 4, and I want a grid line every 61 pixels, and click OK, you'll see that that's updated here. It's reflected here. So you can modify that grid. So I'm going to just turn the grid off for now and turn snapping off. So I'm going to hide the grid and turn that off. Another thing that Illustrator is pretty good at is placing things. So for example, let's say that I need a banner up at the top here, and I know it needs to be full width, so it's 1920, and I need it to be 200 pixels high. So if I grab the rectangle tool and I click anywhere on the canvas, it's going to tell me, it's going to ask me for two values. So I know it's going to be 920 pixels, and I said 200 pixels high, so I can make things that are exactly the size that I need them to. And in the properties panel, for the X and Y locations, as long as you have this set at the top left, I can go here and I can go 0, 0 to get it to be exactly where I need it to be. For the stroke value, I might want to turn that off, and we could use this as a placeholder, for example. And Illustrator would be a great tool for wireframing. You want to get some basic wireframes in. So let's continue. Let's say that we have a design. Let's talk about another feature. So if I turn on the rulers, you can see I have a ruler on the top horizontally, and I have a ruler on the side vertically. And I can drag ruler guides down to where I need it to go. So for example, I know that I need, at least let's say that I want a 200 pixel margin over here on the left. So if I click and start dragging, I'm going to get this bar that follows me. Now if you wanted to snap to any of these points, you can hold down the shift key and it'll snap to the points on the ruler. So I'm going to snap it to 200, so I know it's exactly at the 200 mark. And you can do that the same on the right. So I know I need, this is 1900, so maybe it comes to here, and then release the shift key. And now I have my margins on the left and the right. Let's say I need a column down the middle. So 1920 divided by 2, I believe, is 640. So let me double check my math. So 1920 divided by 2 is 960. So if I want a guide in that location, I can't create a guide and put it exactly there, but if I grab a guide and I pull it out roughly to where I think it is, and as long as the guides are not locked, so if I go back to guides and make sure that they're not unlocked guides, I'm going to unlock them. So now you can select them just like they're an object. And over here in the X value, I can type in 960, so it'll go directly there. So let's say that this is going to be my gutter for the columns. I need the gutter to be 20 pixels wide. So I could make this 950, let's say. And then I need another guide that's going to be 20 pixels away from that. So this one's going to be at 980. So now I have my gutters, and then to go back, and I'll just lock those guides. Now I can lock those guides down. Then maybe say I need some horizontal guides in here, so there's going to be some margin between the banner and the content. So I can pull that down from the top. Again, holding down the shift key will make it snap. So maybe I have it snap to maybe this location, giving you a little bit of a breathing room. And for content that's going to go into these frames, let's say, just imagine that these are frames and it's going to fill some content. So let's say, for example, I have a leading image at the top of this, and then there's going to be an article beneath it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the rectangle tool, and I'm going to just move my cursor to this corner. I'm going to line it up here and click and drag over to the right. Notice that it should snap to the guides. So it's another great thing. And it's also giving me this indicator that's telling me how tall this object is. So let's say I want it to be 300 pixels tall. So I'm just watching the height value as I drag, and then I can let go. And I can make sure over here, so I have this box is 740 pixels wide by 300. Since this is going to be a wireframe, I'm just going to fill that with a light gray color. I can do the same to the banner up at the top. I just want to fill that with a light gray color. And I don't need a stroke, so a quick way to switch to the stroke is by hitting X. And then if you want to get rid of the stroke, you can hit the / key, which is the same key that the question mark is on, and that will get rid of the stroke. So I'm imagining there's a banner up here, I have a leading image, and now let's say that I need some text. So if I grab the type tool, I'm just hitting the T key to grab the type tool. I'm going to move my cursor over here to the guide, click and drag down and over to the right, just approximating like the beginning first paragraph, and let go. And what Illustrator does, it puts in lorem ipsum text for you by default. I can make this bigger by hitting Command Shift and the right bracket key, which is also the period key on the keyboard, just to make that bigger so it's a little bit more readable. And just over here on the right hand side in the character, I have 20 point text, which is roughly about 20 pixels, over 24. If you want to adjust that value, you can adjust the values over here on the right. And then thus the color, instead of total black, maybe I want a darker gray value, so I can make that dark gray. And this is how you can use Illustrator to quickly rough out a wireframe and add in images, add in text. Maybe you want to add a headline over here. You can add in icons. You can download icons from a variety of different sources and use that in your project. So those are the strengths of Illustrator. The weaknesses of Illustrator is that now, let's say, for example, that I want to get this stuff out of Illustrator. I need to start developing it and make it into actual code. So that's where Illustrator is lacking. There may be some plugins or some extra features that you can download from the Adobe CC application that works in conjunction with Illustrator to export things out as web assets and then produce HTML, but it doesn't do that out of the box. So this is just an overview of how you can use Illustrator for web design, and it's a great tool, a lot of precision, which is great. The grids, the guides, snapping, all that stuff is really good. It's just not completely geared towards web development.